Donald Trump called Kamala Harris's advisors garbage just like the other week. Donald Trump said America is a trash can and the world is sending their garbage, which is migrants here. Donald Trump's called me and other people that oppose him in the media the enemy of the people. He's called people human scum. He said that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs. Do we need to keep doing this? Like this, like we're going to pretend to be offended on behalf of Donald Trump? I mean, and Steven Crowder, by the way, his whole career, this is why he's on Rumble, not on YouTube, because he got kicked off YouTube because all he does is insult gay people, insult trans people. The only garbage I know is Steven Crowder and Donald Trump. So they're garbage. I don't think all of Donald Trump's supporters are garbage. I think that many of them are good people that have been misinformed by Donald Trump and Steven Crowder's lies.
In today's video, Tim Miller absolutely destroys Steven Crowder in a heated debate, and honestly, it's about time. Crowder, as usual, comes in with his smug, rehearsed talking points, thinking he can steamroll the conversation. But Tim Miller wasn't having any of it. He exposed Crowder's bad faith arguments, called out his blatant misinformation, and shut down every weak excuse Crowder tried to throw his way. So, let's dive in and watch how Tim Miller shuts down Steven Crowder in this heated debate.
Steven, your response.
Yeah, well, look, one thing, I don't like the way that these panels sometimes some people descend into nothing but ad hominem and interrupt each other. So I promise you, I'm going to respect your time, and you will not hear me speak a single time today, not one interruption. Until you hear this bell, I just ask that you give me the floor. So not going to address the ad hominem, but I've never been banned from YouTube. As a matter of fact, this will be up on YouTube. The election live stream of the century will be on YouTube as well. Every single example that was just given was not addressed to the American people at large, and not even the Democrat voting base at large. America is for Americans. Are black people not Americans? Are Hispanic Americans not Americans? The qualifier that I have always made, and Donald Trump has always made, and the reason that so many Americans support him is because there aren't those qualifiers of race that we see in identity politics. Every single example, I could go through all of them, the people around Kamala Harris, the people surrounding her, are scum and garbage. That's not going to be misinterpreted as Kamala's supporters are garbage. The voters of Donald Trump are deplorable. These people are scum. Kamala Harris is dumb, whatever he said. That's very different from the hatred, the reviling of the American voter. Your floor.
Yeah, you know what, Tim Miller, what I would say is, people on the left, they're very, very quick to be very offended by Trump's rhetoric. This has been going on for 8 years now, that this guy talks in a disparaging way about people. It's unacceptable, it's awful, blah, 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 blah. But you think nothing as a group of constantly flashing the Nazi word around, fascist, Nazi, and now garbage. Why is it one rule for Trump? Why do you want him to clean up the way he talks, but a completely different set of rules for your own side? Why are you allowed to just go around calling people mass murderers?
I'm not. Like I said, the only people I called garbage were Donald Trump and Steven Crowder because they've acted like garbage by disparaging people their entire careers. Like that was the whole premise of both of these two guys' careers. Donald Trump's just been a little bit more successful at it. So Joe Biden's statement, I think, was like totally nonsensical marble mouth. And I was maybe one of the most vocal people saying Joe Biden shouldn't run for president again. Joe Biden isn't running for president. Kamala Harris is running for president, and she gave a speech on the ellipse where she talked about how MAGA voters would have and MAGA politicians would have a seat at the table in her administration. So you guys are trying to make something out of nothing, and you're trying to do this fake outrage where it's like in soccer, Piers, where you guys are flopping. You're flopping on the ground, hoping the refs call a foul on Joe Biden, when Donald Trump's whole career has been insults and lies and disparaging people, and also his actual actions have been hurtful. You know, the sexual assault that he committed on women, the fact that he banned people from coming to this country based on their religion, the separating of family. We could just go on and on about Donald Trump's behavior, the cops that got injured at the Capitol because of the riot that he started. So Donald Trump, it's not just his words, it's his actions that have been harmful. And you guys can get mad about what the soon-to-be former president, Joe Biden, like incomprehensibly said, but he's not running against Joe Biden. And it seems like a desperate ploy to like put on a fancy costume and dress up like an Oompa Loompa.
Pause. If you're enjoying this video so far, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. Now Crowder tries to argue that Trump's insults are somehow different, that calling Kamala Harris's team garbage isn't the same as insulting voters. But let's be real, Trump's whole brand is punching down, whether it's calling journalists the enemy of the people, saying Haitian migrants are eating pets, or mocking disabled reporters. The outrage over Biden's garbage comment is just another fake tantrum from the right, acting like they care about civility while cheering on Trump's never-ending stream of attacks. And it's clear nothing has changed. If anything, he's even more unhinged. He's still spreading lies about the election, still ranting about his enemies, and now he's gutting entire federal agencies to consolidate power. This isn't leadership. It's a revenge tour.
All right, Stephen, I mean, last time I checked, Joe Biden remains the current president of the United States. He is the leader of the free world. And for him to pop up as Kamala Harris is delivering her supposed great final mission statement to the electorate on a Skype call, calling half of America garbage, struck me as just, never mind anything else, incredibly bad timing, to the point where you think, was that deliberate? Is he trying to sabotage her?
Thank you. But again, I'm really going to avoid ad hominem, which is really tough because it seems to be coming from the other side of this panel here.
Well, I will note for the record that you have not gone ad hominem. And Tim, to be fair, all you've done is abuse Steve. All you've done is abuse Steve on a personal level. I actually would like to rise above that.
His whole career is all he's done is attack gay and trans people. Now he's like, he's getting offended, being called out for it. Just Google his history of his comments about gays, trans people, women. Like he is Mr. Ad hominem. So don't like try to be like, oh, I'm Mr. Nice Guy now. Come on, give me a break. Let's be honest.
Stephen?
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. As far as it being ill-advised, I would say so with Joe Biden. The problem is that Kamala Harris was given so many opportunities to distance herself from Joe Biden. The Biden-Harris administration, she chose not to. She said there's not a thing that she would do differently, and she was one of his most important advisors in all of the decisions that had an impact. Vice presidents aren't always given such an easily identifiable pet project. She was. And I know the talking point is she wasn't the border czar, even though Biden said that. The point is she was in charge of, she was being tasked with discovering the root cause of the immigration issue. Well, we had 3 million under Donald Trump's tenure, and now we have at least 15 to 20 million on the low end. That is a huge impact that affects Americans. If we want to talk about Donald Trump's actions hurting Americans, look, I guess we're back to 2016. The issue is no Americans have lived actions that have harmed them more than the latest administration. They've lived it. They lived Donald Trump for 4 years. They've lived Biden-Harris for 4 years. It doesn't work. It falls on deaf ears. It's like Paul Revere always saying, the exact same economy is coming. The exact same economy is coming. If you want to talk about actions that have hurt, I would argue that the actions on the border, the actions on American energy, the policies, which I would like to discuss, have hurt Americans. It's why they're rejecting Kamala Harris. It's why they trust Donald Trump more on issues like the economy and immigration. And by the way, I'm one of them, but the point remains, not one example has been presented. And by the way, I'm not offended by any of this. You haven't heard me feign outrage. I've just tried to describe the situation, why Americans don't like it. Not one example at all of Donald Trump referring to the American people at large as garbage or insulting them as the Democrat Party does every single election cycle. Your floor.
This guy built his entire career on mocking LGBTQ people, spreading racist dog whistles, and insulting women. But now when he gets called out, suddenly he's Mr. Civil Discourse? Give me a break. Then Crowder shifts gears to defend Trump again, ranting about immigration and economy like Trump didn't absolutely tank both. Let's not forget, under Trump's first term, he pushed a cruel family separation policy at the border, making the situation worse, not better. And while Crowder blames Biden for the current border crisis, he conveniently ignores the fact that Trump dismantled programs designed to process asylum seekers more efficiently. The numbers Crowder throws around also doesn't account for the fact that many migrants were expelled under Trump's Title 42 policy, which inflated Biden's numbers when those same people had to cross multiple times just to apply legally.
The other thing I would say to you, Tim, is what I find as an ongoing bizarre set of circumstances is that I keep hearing again from the left that Trump is the most racist candidate there's ever been, etc. He's a fascist and so on. How do you explain, if that is the case, how do you explain that his support amongst Black and Latino Americans is rising to record levels for him in the last 8 years? Why is that happening? Why are they gravitating to somebody who is supposedly this terrible racist?
I mean, we haven't voted yet, Pierce, so let's see how that turns out next week. It looks like we're going to have record turnout in Detroit, they just said. We'll see if that is a surprising turnout for Donald Trump there. I kind of doubt it. But this whole thing that's like, you guys want to play in this fantasy pretend world where it's like Donald Trump doesn't insult people. What? Like, everyone watching knows that's not true. Why is the left calling Donald Trump a fascist? The left isn't calling Donald Trump a fascist. John Kelly, who Donald Trump made the head of his Department of Homeland Security, who oversaw the Muslim ban 1.0, and then Donald Trump promoted him to chief of staff. And then he was his longest serving chief of staff. He wasn't a never Trumper like me. He wasn't a moderate Republican rhino. He's a down-the-line conservative American hero that Donald Trump hired twice, who says he is concerned that Donald Trump has fascist tendencies. And there were times during the first administration where Donald Trump was willing to do things against the law, and it required him and Mattis and Milley and others to prevent him from doing it. And he's worried that those guardrails won't be around the next term. So it's not the left, it's not MSNBC, it's not wild-eyed liberals. It's John Kelly, a conservative American hero that Donald Trump hired twice, that is saying that about him. And you guys need to reckon with that rather than just pointing fingers.
All right. I mean, Stephen, that's a fair point. There have been a number of people of John Kelly's ilk who have come forward and said they think Trump is dangerous, who did work with him at the White House. What's your response to that?
Thank you. Well, this is the same John Kelly, by the way, in The Atlantic, the same journalist who spouted the losers and suckers lie, right? This is a disgruntled former employee. Now, maybe it's true, only that same article included Donald Trump saying that we don't need to spend that much for an effing Mexican. By the way, the soldier's family immediately came out and refuted it. So if we're going to talk about people who don't like him, he said, she said, we can do that, or we can discuss the results for the American people and what affects them at large. We can reckon with that. There you go. That's the reckoning. I don't really care what John Kelly says, but here is the fundamental dynamic. And this is why the left, and this is certainly why legacy media, I'm not saying the media, but legacy media, ABC, NBC, CBS, and big tech, they're demanding that Americans trust their institutions, and they're blaming Americans for not trusting their institutions. This article in The Atlantic, John Kelly, is exactly why Americans don't trust those institutions. I trust the family of the soldier, not John Kelly. I trust the American people who want us to have voter ID, not people who say the most secure and fair elections of all time. When we look at the Hunter Biden laptop story, which I know will be dismissed and people say that it was allowed to after a day, that's the perfect encapsulation of the institutions that we're demanded to trust who have failed us, whether it's intelligence officials, whether it's Facebook and the CEO of which apologizing afterwards, Jack Dorsey, YouTube's, the fundamental Democratic Party, and we're told, wait, trust your institutions. Well, I don't trust the institutions that repeat lies that have been debunked, including some specifically from John Kelly. I don't trust those publications. I trust the voice of the family of that soldier. And by the way, the families of all the soldiers who overwhelmingly support Donald Trump and the Republican platform, in contrast to Kamala Harris. Your floor.
Steven Crowder is out here acting like John Kelly is just some disgruntled employee with an axe to grind. But let's not pretend this is some random guy with a grudge. John Kelly was Trump's hand-picked Secretary of Homeland Security and later his longest-serving Chief of Staff. Not exactly a left-wing shill. And Kelly isn't alone. Tons of former Trump officials, including Jim Mattis, Mark Milley, Bill Barr, and even Mike Pence, have publicly warned about how reckless and dangerous Trump really is. But Crowder doesn't want to engage with that. He just brushes it off and pivots to some vague rant about institutions. At the end of the day, this debate boiled down to Tim Miller presenting actual warnings from Trump's own former officials, while Steven Crowder ignored them and instead deflected to conspiracy theories and right-wing talking points. This is the problem with MAGA today. There's no argument, just excuses. And with Trump in office again, everything Kelly and others warned about is already happening. Steven Crowder can just pretend it's just fake news, but reality says otherwise. But this is it for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot.